Check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Check.
Gut mit der Zeitverzögerung. Dann mach nochmal Nein oder was anderes, wenn jemand anderes Fehler ist. Oha, haben wir so viel Zeit verschwendet.
Check, 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 check.
Spiel nochmal ab, ich will drüber reden.
Check, check. 1, 2. Check, check.
Check, check, last two, check, check. Ja, passt. Ja. Jesus.
please sit down. The show's time to start. Hello, and a very warm welcome to everybody here and, of course, online at YouTube. So we have our finals today, which is a great day because we have a lot of teams, a lot of students here that worked for months at their semester projects. And we see a lot of projects today, animations, we see games, and a lot of students showing their hard work. And you can be really proud of your work that we will see today. So let's start with our first game and don't waste more time. So have fun and yeah, let the show begin.
This, what you watched now, was our short film, The Space She Carries. And I want to welcome you now to our presentation. Hi, my name is Maximilian. I'm the director of this wonderful team.
Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm the production manager and was responsible for rigging and also animation.
Hi, I'm Annalena. I am the character designer for this animation. I also did animation and story writing.
Hi, I'm Finn. I'm technical artist, layout artist, and also did compositing and editing.
Hi, I'm Anna. I was one of the animators and concept artists.
Hi, my name is Alyssa and I'm the 3D artist, tech artist and lighting artist.
Hi, I'm Josephine. I was the character CFX artist. I was doing the textures and I also was responsible for story writing. We were supported by Nico and Lucas for music. Also Lorenz did some great guitar music for our last act and Alina did some animations.
Behind the concept of our animation, we have Iris, who, after going through a miscarriage, she withdraws from the real world into her own mind, where she is forced to face her grief. Behind the kind gesture of her grandmother preparing her tea, she finds the space and courage to reach for connection.
You've met our main character, Iris. She's a young woman who, after suffering from a miscarriage, struggles to let her grief in and accept it, and so she pushes it down, and only after finding connection with her grandmother, she is able to open up. To deliver this story in the best way possible, we put a special emphasis during the animation on the connection between the characters, such as the eye contact, which she avoids in the beginning while the grandmother is trying to establish it, to find this connection, as well as physical contact through the hands. And as I mentioned, the grandmother, as she is a very loving woman who raised Iris, is trying to make her open up to her, as she notices that Iris is more distant, so she is trying to establish that contact through seeking her eye line and also through opening up interactions physically.
Okay, so how did we get the characters in motion? As you can see here, we chose to use AutoRig Pro as a base setup and then add up all the custom bones, shape keys and UI rigs on top. That way it was very good later in production because due to time efficiency we chose to have some shots motion captured or performance captured. For those who don't know, it's basically putting a person in a suit with all these dots and capturing the data in real life. So AutoRig makes it very easy to retarget and also have the bone setup already set up, so it was very efficient. And as you can see here, we have 7 shots where we captured the performance. Our animators then of course cleaned up the motion capture data with layers often and then added the facial animation on top since we only did body. There's also a special case of 2 shots where we chose to do also real life camera tracking. It's the ones where she falls down, if you have seen. That way we have a more handheld feeling and it feels more chaotic.
For Grandma's Space, we took inspiration from Eastern European traditional homes to give the feeling of warmth and nostalgia, especially to people who grew up close to their grandparents. We specifically chose to put the action in the kitchen because that's usually the place where family gathers up and opens up about their struggles. The feeling of nostalgia is also visualized through the mismatched patterns, color palettes, and overall cluttered kitchen.
Our second environment is the inner world, where we have a water surface with a shader and the aurora borealis made in Blender using geometry nodes in the shader as well. We also, of course, have the animated props of the moon, the pomegranate, and an egg.
To achieve this level of immersion and also the rather semi-realistic style, our animation relied heavily on simulations, both for environment and characters. While Houdini was doing the heavy lifting, we were also supported by Marvelous Designer. For the ocean, we were using an ocean spectra to generate the general shape of the waves, and then merge it with a flip simulation to make it interactable with objects. The clothes were generated, the pattern was assembled and also simulated in Marvelous. For the hair, we did a simple guide groom in Houdini to bring the general shape, and then did a simple simulation and then use the simple simulation guide to bring it to life.
The visual look of the short film, the grain effect, is done in compositing. It's using a noise image to displace the rendered image. However, to make it move with the character, we're scattering planes on the object, which then move with the object, and then the output of this is actually displacing the rendered image. I made a few Blender scripts for our team during this project. I want to highlight this one, which deals with folder structure and asset naming conventions. The point I want to make here is that not that I made a cool add-on, but that it's really helpful to make it for the team. I want to motivate other tech artists to also get into scripting, because this turned out to be really helpful. So helpful that I put this also online for free to download.
Yes, and even though miscarriage is a really widespread issue, according to statistics, 25% of all pregnancies end within the first 20 weeks. It is not talked about much. And we aimed with this short film to give more voices to this topic and to make it like a conversation starter. And if you want more information about the topic of miscarriage, you can find here the QR code. And if you are interested about the production and have like questions or want to talk with our team, you can find us later at the exhibition at our booth.
presenters.
Ich glaube nicht. Ah, doch. Okay, funktioniert. Fast enough to feel free, detailed enough to feel real. Most games pick one. We wanted both. Without further ado, let's cue the video. There we go.
Peggy 18.
Of course.
Einer unserer Männer ist hier in die Kathedrale gefallen. Das Bad mit dem Metallarm. Findet sie!
Sie ist hier drinnen! Findet die Göre mit dem Metallarm!
Next time.
So that was just a small taste of what you'll later be able to play at our booth. But now, if we were to condense all of that into a sentence, don't worry, we got you. Massacrate is a first-person parkour melee slasher set in an elegant city where you take control of Evelyn, a brutal rogue assassin on the run, using her acrobatic movement and combat expertise to escape. But now, before we get into detail, let's talk about who actually made this. And before we get to us, first of all, a shout out to all of our soundies, Kim, Raphael, and Josh. Without them, it would have not been possible. And also to Bea and Johanna for helping us with mocap. And to me, I'm Raphael, the technical director of the Aristocrats.
I'm Elias, I'm a system programmer, enemy programmer, and also tech artist.
I'm Max, I'm a additional programmer, game designer, and VFX artist.
I'm Yoshi, I'm level designer and also light artist.
I'm Bogam, the environment artist and technical artist.
I'm Kuba, the character artist and animator.
And I'm Ella, the narrative director. And to tell you more about who is Evelyn, you used to be an orphan, but the scientific cultist found you, rescued you, and trained you since then to become the best assassin ever. But to even enhance your abilities more, they gave you the high-tech arm and Azarin drug. So you've been sent on a mission to kill the mayor of the city above the clouds. Although the mission was successful, it wasn't silent, and so now you are on the run. The aristocratic forces are after you, and while you are escaping, you can find many environmental cues in our story of our city. So you'll find objects like posters or Azarin bottles.
Now let's come to the design of Evelyn. Since you're a rogue assassin, of course it's easy for you to get scars and wounds, which is displayed on the left arm, and both showcase to show you the two main factions of the city, which are the tech cults and the aristocrats. Furthermore, the hand is used to slash through entire corpses, so of course it needs to be made out of sturdy materials, and it is made in a visual shape language so it can easily cut through whole foes. Yeah, now let's see this metal arm in action. As you can see, you can fully slice through your enemy foes and also decapitate them. And since Evelyn is under the drug of Azarin, you can see she perceives time differently, so she can slow down time.
So you can even make more precise movements. And since she's also been trained in parkour since she was a child, you can see Evelyn can dash to close the distance, overcome gaps, or even dodge enemy attacks. Added to that, we wanted the city to feel more alive, so Evelyn is able to vault, mantle, and also slide between narrow passages. And moreover, you can see Evelyn can wall run. We wanted the city to feel like a giant playground for your movement abilities. So it's your time to find your way through the city.
While the city was still under construction, we thought Evelyn needed hundreds and thousands of ways to move directly at the start. However, we realized clarity was lacking. So now, our first area serves as a learning ground. You slowly get to absorb the world around you and learn how you can use the movement for your own advantage. And our second area leaves room for expression. It's an open area where you can freely move around and find your own style.
Approaching a city-scale environment in a small team means the pipeline has to be decided very early on or it falls apart. First, a lot of versatile trim sheets were modeled and sculpted, and then textured, so the whole city shares one consistent visual language, and then packed into one single PNG image, and this allowed us for the whole entire city to be textured with only 4 materials. This also gives us a lot of time to focus on our actual identity and the silhouette of our city. And the architecture blends Art Deco and Victorian. Art Deco for the elegance and the immersion of the aristocratic world, and Victorian for that verticality and geometrical traversal for a very fun parkour. At a street level of Area 1, the exterior is quite dirty to still reflect that urban lifestyle. And then as we go more towards the city district, in Area 2, it's rather cleaner to showcase that glamorous city that never sleeps. Every building is trying to tell us something. Who owns it, what type of people are there, and what actually happens there. For example, the jazz bar interior where the previous Evelyn's incident happened and the mission gone bad. So basically the environment can tell a story before the game even does.
For the atmosphere of our city, you will realize this contrast between the cold tones of the night and the warmth that is coming from the city. We wanted to create a feeling of a bougie city that never sleeps. And while the warmth is not only guiding you through the night, it's also telling a story about the people that live inside it and the luxury that's among it.
And while you traverse this city, this beautiful city, you will encounter 4 different kinds of enforcers. The first one is the goon. You can see here, he's quick to kill, he's quick on his feet and just as easy to kill. And then we have the jumper. He's a bit more harder to kill, and will stay at medium range until he can jump at you and attack you. The third kind of encounter you have is the guardian. He will charge at you. He will try to hit you and knock you back. And to hit him, you have actually hit his back and hit him multiple times compared to the other enemies. And lastly, we have the sniper. He serves as a kind of area control, so you either have to dodge his bullets in time or traverse the environment while trying to stay in cover.
Now that we saw the End Forces in action, let's take a look at their uniforms. As you can see, they have one unifying signature piece, which is the rose, which is established on each one's uniform. They also have materials that go from less to more, the further you look to the right, to showcase they are of different importance and different spawnability. But even though they might look quite similar to each other, they of course have their own personality, as the goon, for example, is quite cocky. Meanwhile, the jumper is more confident and is trying to easily kill you without losing any aura, so to say. Guardian is, on the other hand, the last line of defense, which showcases him being more of the father figure of the whole group. And also the sniper, he has pretty much no guts. That's why you have to slice him through and figure it out for yourself.
We didn't build a perfect game, but we built a city we can truly be proud of. And with our job done now, it's up to you to experience the city and find your own style of assassination. So come visit us at our booth later tonight, or later today, and thank you so much.
you still want to read your old journal, Celia? It should be in the Domefall exhibition behind that big door.
I think it feels even more important now. I'm just not sure. I need to think about this.
I see. I see.
Ta-da!
Bujulita's The Sleepover Heist is a chaotic, charming, funny puzzle adventure that lives off of, at times, questionable humor and the unique interactions between the characters and their environment. Join Nora, Edna, Winona, and Sojourner and use their respective abilities to navigate an increasingly out-of-hand situation. Nothing is what it seems in this museum heist, so buckle up, embrace the chaos, and get ready to be blown away. I'm Rebecca, and I'm the project manager and 3D environmental artist.
I'm Marlene, I'm the vision keeper and the programmer.
I'm Mario, I'm an artist.
Hi, I'm Mia, I did the tech and lighting art.
I'm Drew, I'm the art and sound director.
I'm Robin, and I'm the game and level designer. And we also had Gilmore, who was nice enough to do some music for us, as well as Fatma, Anna, and Happy Little Tree, who did the voice acting of our characters. Let's take a look at what the gameplay actually works like. You get into an area of the museum which you can explore. You then have your character's abilities and the possibility to interact with a lot of things in the environment that you can use to explore and find the hints to get to the next area. But where it gets more interesting is how we actually use those abilities and interactions, because we actually have 4 characters you can play as, which you can switch at any time, and each character has a unique ability that they can use, as well as unique dialogue if they interact with things. So we use that dialogue from interactions to show you story, jokes, and puzzle hints, and then you can use the abilities to actually interact with the environment and solve your puzzles.
And those are our characters. Let me introduce you. This is Nora. She has cool X-ray glasses. Then there's Edna with her legally distinct V-mode she can use to hack anything. And Winona, she got a grappling hook for her birthday. She never wanted one, but now she can finally use it. And then there's Sojourner. She's a bit tired. She brought a bunch of stuff.
So how did we translate those characters into actual 3D models? Well, since we had these characters actually designed before the project, we already kind of had 3D models with some rigs, and we just had to make sure they work in the game engines. And then we gave them some textures that are based pretty much on the 2D illustrations of the characters.
Character animation was approached in a way that would retain all the characters' individual vibes while also making and keeping the animations reusable and simple across all of them.
And for our artistic vision, we wanted to maintain 3 core pillars. We wanted to make sure that the game feels whimsy and not so anxiety-inducing as heists typically are. We wanted to make sure that the stylistic signature of the merchandise of these characters is translated really well into the game itself. And we wanted to make sure that it's coherent, that the visual language is readable for the player and that they can understand how to progress in the puzzle.
In order to put that vision into practice, we decided on a stylized, cartoony art style with low-poly 3D models. hand-painted titleable textures, and texture decals for smaller details.
Okay. How did we translate this whimsical, warm feel into lighting and VFX and also keep like the humor? We have the color scheme on the left with our key art, and you notice it's in daytime, so we wanted the heist feeling to be at nighttime, so we made it a little bit darker in the end. And with the effects, we wanted to have this toony, funny feeling and translate that into the usual stuff here. So this is the key art we were working from. You can see it's very cartoonish and stuff. And this is how it translated into the game, where we added some god rays from above to enhance the lighting feeling of the moon and stuff.
Gilmore, our sound boy, tried to capture the essence of a heist while also retaining more whimsical approach that the characters also just have. And the music he made was created modularly, so we can easily modify it and adapt it to any situation. To further emphasize the characters' personalities and just their vibe and player immersion, we also got a few cool voice actors from Discord to like say a bunch of stupid stuff for us.
No. Don't worry. We got this. We just gotta find another, more inconvenient, yet narratively satisfying way to get there. What's a heist without some twists?
So to actually test how well our game was working, we started pretty early with user testing with a paper prototype. And since we already had 3D printed figurines of our characters, we actually could just let people move them inside our paper blockout. And then later on, we moved to an actual in-engine blockout where we tested the actual mechanics and gameplay. And the main things we noticed is that we need more player guidance to actually move through the level properly. And we also needed to make sure to use all 4 characters the same amount in the puzzle so no one gets left behind.
So we decided to use Yarn Spinner. It's a really cool dialogue integration tool in combination with the Unity timelines. This allowed us to pretty much offer all of the game's content directly in those Yarn scripts, so our designer and the writer had full control. Here's an example of what those notes look like. It made integrating voice lines and custom talk sprites really easy, and it allows us to trigger the timelines directly from those notes.
So timelines work really well with Yarn Spinner in general. So timelines in Unity are also very powerful, but we wanted them to be a little bit more powerful, so we added some custom tools so we can trigger sounds, VFX, or also make small animations with like a tiny tween tool that we made, so we don't have to go into Blender all the time and do the custom animation.
Our experiences with past projects were very helpful in defining our goals for this project. For project management, we created milestone plans, planned sprints, used Kanban boards, and held retrospectives to continuously adjust our approach. Regular meetings, dailies, and working together helped us keep track of the project status and reassured us that we were heading in the right direction. Project management department classes were especially useful in that regard, as they helped us address issues as they occurred and before they affected development. As you can see, we really learned a lot this semester. In the beginning, we weren't really sure what direction the project was going to take, but through many meetings and iterations, we were able to bring everything together in the end. Early, clear, and direct communication also allowed us to reduce the project scope and take into account every team member's needs, wants, and skills when defining our goals. All in all, we're really happy how this turned out, and we hope you join us as we look towards the future.
Because in the future, we definitely do want to continue working on this, so please come visit our booth and help us figure out how to make it even cooler.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I hope you've been enjoying the site so far. However, I have to unfortunately announce that this trip does not ever lead to your destination. This is One Way Getaway, a cozy 3D retro style game with a twist.
Hi, I'm Jay. I'm the environment artist.
I'm Mariam. I'm the 3D generalist.
I'm Ipek. I'm the technical director.
And I'm Melina. I'm the creative director of the team.
I'm Rosina. I'm the production manager.
And I'm Lisa. I did the programming.
And also special thanks to our animator Lukas Hild and our soundy Henry, who did an amazing job, as you will see soon.
Just because a vacation trip on a cruise seems to offer a nice place to relax,
doesn't mean that this voyage will give you the comfort and safety you seek.
Okay, so now we will go over to the gameplay. Each day you start at the bridge, getting a task from the captain. Essentially, you are this ship's dedicated trash collector as a raccoon, and he tells you that you need to do your task and collect the trash. Here he says 5 treasures are left, and they are all scattered across the ship, and you can do some exploration, find them, interact with them. For example, this fire extinguisher, you can also kick it into the trash if you want to. There you can see it. And when you do some more exploration over the ship, you may come across other passengers, and if you talk to them, you may progress the story. So for example, here we can see Karen, and then there is Daisy. And we talk to Daisy. And we get Birthday on Sea, which is a story beat essentially about the ship not arriving in time, so Daisy can celebrate her birthday with her family. So in order to fix this, since we're a good person, we try to organize a birthday party for Daisy. So first off, we collect everyone. We skipped ahead here. Everyone is in the dining, ready to party. And then the only thing left is the cake. And where do we get that from? Daisy says it's in the storage. Why does Daisy know that? We don't know. It's a bit suspicious. Anyway, we go downstairs, and we can already see this is maybe a bit of a dark area where passengers may not be allowed. It's only for us to see. The storage is a bit cluttered. We go in there. Here the cake is supposed to be, and there's the cake. We pick it up, and oh, okay, this is a bit of an unexpected behavior. Something went wrong. But anyway, the show has to go on. We go outside, and suddenly, if you notice, something about the cake is off. It seems a bit rotten. And is that really something we should give to Daisy? We step ahead. Let's see what happens. And what is it? What the frog is this? Get that away from me. Whatever that is, it's not cake. So we may have doomed the party a bit. But if you want to find out how to save Daisy's birthday party, play this game. So
so our characters are split into the ship crew and the passengers, and the crew consists of the captain and the main character, and both of them are wearing a blue uniform to make them stand out from the passengers and to also show their role on the ship. And you, as the main character, are responsible for keeping the ship clean and also managing any wishes or tasks that may come up from the passengers. And the captain also needs help sometimes, so he will ask you to do daily tasks on the ship. And after you complete them for the first time, the ship then opens and you can meet the passengers. There are 3 passengers, Daisy, John, and Karen, and each one of them has a different personality type to keep the interactions a bit more interesting. And their behavior starts out normal and then slowly becomes stranger and more delusional as you progress in the story. yeah, the 3D models for our characters were kept simple and low poly, and the proportions are very stylized with a big head and small body to support the cozy and cute look we were going for. And on the texture, the eyes were made bigger, so the expressions would be clear and readable with the pixelation filter on top. And the blinking and facial expressions were made by creating a texture set of different expressions of the eye area specifically, and then swapping them out in Engine to create that animation effect.
Now, a bit about the environments. The environments have evolved a lot through our development. That is how it looked at the beginning, and now this is how it looks. As you can see, because to implement gameplay features better, we made the environments not only bigger, but with 16 times the detail. And also, we got much more closer to that retro game aesthetic that we were going for. And how did we get this aesthetic? Well, we tried to copy not only the visuals themselves, but also how these graphics were made back in the day and their limitations. For example, we used very low poly meshes, and for the textures, we used a combination of handmade pixel art and downscaled photos. And on top, we used some shaders that add effects like pixelization, vertex snapping, affine texture mapping, color limiters, basically things that try to mimic the imperfections and the limitations of those older PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64 era graphics. And in our game, some of the environments go through some transformations. We added these transformations into the game to highlight the weird parts in the story, and also to basically visually tell the players that our game world does not follow normal logic. As you know, our game starts off as this cute, cozy Animal Crossing type game, and then starts to get a bit darker, a bit more ominous. And to convey this atmosphere shift, we try to use the environment itself as a storytelling tool, where basically the environment itself tells the players that maybe this ship is not what it seems to be.
Exactly. Now, how you do this is, how we did this, is use what we call a weirdness graph. So our story is split into different beats, and each beat has increased tension over the game. We do this through narrative elements that are, of course, scripted into the story. However, we also have more subtle, continuously increasing elements, such as mentioned the environments, the music, and also the cameras themselves getting stranger the further you go. We started all this in the very beginning of this year as a game jam, and this we were able to take as a starting point, and afterwards we did 2-week sprints with user testing every 2 weeks, and this was very crucial for our game because we had to really make sure that these weirdness elements resonated with the players and they were seen as intentional and not simply bugs or weird stuff. There you go. However, now our game is finished, the semester is essentially done, and we have some takeaways of what we did. A lot, what I would say is doing more, and creativity is kind of when you have a big finale and you have tension rising all the time, that creates a bottleneck in your mind where you discard every single idea that isn't the most extraordinary thing you've ever seen. However, with good direction and good team members and a lot of communication, you can get through this and work on defining your scope properly. And one of our special things in our game, because we have this shift from cozy, cute to a bit of psychological horror, it's harder to define a game identity. Because anytime you do a decision when it comes to game design, environment design, literally any design, you have to think of both the cozy game genre and the horror game genre. You have to keep this in mind all the time. However, with tools such as the weirdness graph and consistent documentation, this is doable, as you can see. And Thank you for listening to this announcement, and we hope to have you as guests soon again when you yourself take step into the vastness of the ocean and experience what may be happening on this ship.
We believe that there's nothing quite like the rush you get from being able to move fast. For us, movement is freedom. That's why we welcome you to Your Road, One Track. It is a third-person movement game, very anime-inspired, where you take on the role of a magical girl free runner running through an open city. Check it out.
Hi, I'm Liz. I was the concept artist and art director for this project.
I'm Felix, and I'm taking care of the animations and all around the movement design and game design.
I'm Jenny. I'm concept artist, 2D and 3D generalist.
I'm Clara. I did the character and also VFX.
I'm Gilmore. I'm the programmer and also the composer and sound designer.
I'm Margareta, environmental tech artist and also help with production management.
I'm Tenny and I did the props. So and a special thanks to Fien and Freya for helping us out.
So, you play as a star, young adult hobby composer who loves her community and her city. One day she finds a magical MP3 player which allows her to transform into magical girl freerunner.
Unlike other magical girls, she doesn't shoot magical beams or use the power of the moon to defeat enemies. No, her magic gives her superhuman mobility. that we show through the animation. They are very anime inspired and are based on parkour and free running moves. And we really want to show the fun and confidence she has, because movement is everything in our game.
And to really highlight her magical girliness, we have some amazing VFX that rely on 3 core principles that are pink, stars, and sparkles, and also bloom. They have different looks for all the different abilities. So when you hit combos and you get speed, you can hit all the different moves and discover all the different VFX. And there's also a magical girl transformation for when you're really fast. So when you come by later, maybe you can check that out.
If you manage to. The city Star lives in is built to sustain and to be a place for people to live and thrive. And it is all built by someone who is only known as a ground architect, who wanted it to be walkable and accessible to all people without any cars needed. So when you play, you have an open space where you can run around and hit all your movement abilities in the city that is meant for that.
But how can a single architect build an entire city? Only using technologies. And so did we in our project, and use some procedural techniques in Houdini to build generators for assets scattered in different assets variations, as well as auto UV and texture mapping that allowed us to reduce the draw cost and increase the performance using only one texture for all assets textured in.
And what does a city like this need? Human fingerprints. So that's why we made some props, and because we had so many of them and not enough time, we had a solution for it, which was the gradient texture, which helped us to texture them faster without caring so much about the UV.
Well, this beautiful city is slowly being corroded, and because there is no big, bad, tangible evil to fight, the only way Star can help is by helping the community. And the way you do that is by finding missions, which are basically quick A to B point races where you have to find the fastest route. The music is self-composed by Star, and part of what gives her these magical abilities. It is inspired by Japanese funk with house and very heavy synthy inspirations. Yes.
Of course, we showed our girl in the city to other people to know what they're what they're thinking about. So first thing first, they thought playing with controller is easier than the keyboard. They really like double jump, and they think the visuals are putting everything together, and the movement is very satisfying. One thing is that if you're not very familiar with movement game, this might not be very easy for you to play, but come and try it out.
Our key takeaways are basically the Houdini plugin we created to build the city at the end was kind of more trouble than it was worth it. Not because the plugin itself didn't work, but because there were a lot of licensing issues with Houdini, which at the end made it so that large parts of our team were not able to use this plugin on their PCs because Houdini just doesn't like to do that. But on the other hand, focusing on our game feel, because our game is very movement heavy, was worth gold. Even when we just started putting in a little bit game feel at the beginning with just a rough prototype, our testers were already giving really positive feedback, showing that focusing on how the movement feels is the right way to do it. Now everyone, run with us, later exhibition. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Imagining buying one another item online, and then another and another and another. Somewhere when I look into my closet, I realize how overfilled it was. And I thought to myself, when did this happen? When did something so normal turns into something feeling so suffocating? Mindless consumption, especially in this age of super fast fashion, is harmful to us and also our environment. And this is the idea behind Consumed. Yeah. Let's meet the team. I'm Kelly. I'm Vision Keeper, production manager, also animator and compositor.
I am Bianca. I'm creative director, animation supervisor, and character designer.
Hi, I'm Anna. I am the production manager, animator, and also the animation colorist.
I'm Simi. I was responsible for backgrounds, concept art, and also cleanup.
I'm Yasha. I was also a cleanup animator. I did concept art, and I was the Git manager.
Hello, I'm Jason. I was a rough animator as well as animation supervisor's assistant and our soundie.
Yeah, our intention behind Consumed was to convey the consequences of overconsumption regarding superfast fashion. Rather than lecturing our audience on this, we instead aimed to let the viewer have the realization themselves together with our main character. This is why the atmosphere goes from being upbeat to being claustrophobic and chaotic. Our personal goals for this project were to create a short, high-quality animation focusing on clarity, visual quality, and cohesion.
Now that we've seen our vision statement a little bit, let's get into the concept as well as our pre-production. Meet our main character, Girl. She was made to be kind of an average of anything you can think of visually and personality-wise. That way our audience can project themselves onto her. We designed her with internet trends and kind of K-pop inspired fashion in mind. That way we had a little bit more cohesion with her outfits. Let's take a look at her room.
So our animation takes place in a one-room apartment. The goal here was to make the character feel as isolated as possible so that the only company she has are her purchases. She's very oblivious to her consumption problem, but in the backgrounds there's always the waste displays that she is producing to really drive home the fact that the clothes that we buy don't just disappear just because we don't wear them and ignore them. Environment design is closely linked to color design. We presented the shift and her descent through shifting hues. So we start off with like the warm pinkish tones and then move to a darker blue. During the blue section of the movie, the color range is also a lot smaller to really have this uncanny and claustrophobic feel during the last third of the movie.
For our music, we were originally going to go for something similar to city pop, but partway through the semester that shifted more into a K-pop inspired soundtrack. We have it very bright, upbeat, kind of a faster tempo. That way there's a lot of contrast between the beginning and the end when things kind of shift off kilter and become more uncanny and wrong.
Moving on to our production. Beep. There's a couple of things we did to achieve the goals that we had for Consumed during this phase, starting off with a thorough art Bible that goes beyond just a turnaround, providing stuff and notes like specific body mechanics. To keep the animation on model and similar in quality, our animation supervisors went over every single shot and did corrections within the software. And lastly, the whole cleanup process was limited to only 2 artists in order to decrease the individual fingerprint of the 5 rough animation artists we had.
Moving on to the pipeline, as you can see here, there were actually quite a few steps involved to get to the final product that we presented. First, we started with an animatic, of which we then took the shots and recreated them in 3D to use as reference. We moved on to rough animation. We split it into keys and in-betweens, both of which were edited and got feedback from both of our animation supervisors. The cleanup crew then went on to align the shots and sent them over to the colorist, who then filled in flats. Both of that was done in Toon Boom. Finally, we put everything into After Effects to get that final composite look and added scenic rim lighting to end up with a striking final product.
Moving on to our production management. To produce such a visually appealing project, it takes a lot of management and teamwork. And we realized quickly that we are all really visual people. So a tool that we used was the visual shot tracker. It's important because you can see every shot and you can see what state is per shot. And also we also have a column for the backgrounds, so we kept track of everything in one glance.
Yeah, we also had like a visual weekly task tracker where every member has like their own row with their own task on a sticky note from their daily task, which helps us having like a really nice overview what task needs to be finished until when. Yeah. Also very significant tools we use were of course GitHub, Discord, and I want to explain a little bit about our naming conventions, which is like consisting of the number in our arc introduction, 1EN, and the shot code numbers of 10, 20, 30 instead of using shot 1, 2, 3. So if we want, in case we want to add a new shot, we can just call it number 15, which is then between shot 10 and 20.
Last but not least, we're coming to the end. Our key lessons were, first of all, we were happy that we were open to new workflows and programs, because if we would have stick to what we know, we would have used Google Drive for file sharing and not use Git, and we would never have that smooth workflow that we had. Second thing is feedback is nice, but we had to figure out a sweet spot where it was just one feedback and moving on per shot. And last but not least, one update a day per team member keeps the crunch away. So with that being said, see you at the booth, guys. We prepared a lot of activities, including a sewing workshop, and you can draw a girl in a top model shop, and also participate in a competition. So yeah, see you there.
All right, 15-minute break. Please be back here in time.
Check, check. Hi everyone, we are Sigma Unit, and we are working on Blob the Klex. Blob the Klex is a charming 3D platformer where you get to see the world through the eyes of a little black stray cat named Klex and explore the cozy town of Katzburg. But before we continue, let's introduce the team.
Hello, I'm Alejandro. I'm the vision keeper as well as a game/level designer, and I do a lot of 3D assets.
I'm Elena. I'm the project manager and one of the programmers. I'm Laura. I am the art director, concept artist, and asset artist.
And I'm Julian, the other programmer and the lead narrative designer. So, let's put ourselves into the paws of young Klex. Growing up in a rundown shelter in the outskirts of Katzburg, one day you're frolicking around with your one friend, Krümel, and the next that same friend is being taken away forever. To make matters worse, the shelter doesn't seem to want you anymore either. But it seems even in the face of great misfortune, you meet a curious bird who quickly becomes a friend for life. Fast forward to today, you and your feathered friend live comfortable lives as model citizens of Katzburg. But one fateful day, your lost shelter friend makes a reappearance in Katzburg, and he is nothing like you remember him. Now it is up to you. Now it is up to you to find out what Krümel is scheming, and now it is up to you to find out what Krümel is scheming, what made him this way, and how you can forgive him.
While constructing the story of Katzburg, it was important to us that the player contains a sense of narrative consistency, and for that reason we set up a couple of rules for ourselves for populating the world with smaller and more significant character interactions. For example, we want to focus on the animal world rather than the human world, because obviously cats can't talk to people. We want to keep the human characters relatively shallow while just fleshing out our animal cast more. You'll see it a bit later. We have several ways of telling the narrative through which you gradually uncover the story of Klex and Krümel. And we still try to minimize the amount of game dialogue because obviously the focus should still remain on the gameplay itself.
So let's move on how we actually get all the cores of the game in our cozy little experience. The level select, for instance, as you can see here, is literally just a map of Katzburg. Here you'll be able to select all the levels, all the different environments, as well as visit different residents of Katzburg via our little visual novels that are primarily there to tell the story. We try to find a careful balance between the more gameplay heavy levels as well as all of the more story driven and visual novel sections. Our levels are also very much inspired by our cozy little D-Burg that we live in here. We try to give each of them their own unique flair, their own unique style, and focus on different gameplay gimmicks or even just interesting vista to look at that are most of the time directly based of a real place, like for example Schloss Fechenbach, the museum here, or the Goethe Museum, Goethe Schule, which are both places that are in our game. That type of design, or like careful design, is also in more pressing parts, like for example here. Each color, or like each gameplay aspect or gameplay gimmick, has a specific color that denotes their usage. For example, red, as you can see, is every single punchable object, so things like cranks or buttons, things that you can punch. Purple objects are things you can interact with the ball in some way, so for example, breaking boxes, or as you can see here, like an awning that bounces your way, while orange points are always hold points. These you can hang on to and use them to pretty much just climb different things. This obviously brings in a lot of limitations for our design because we suddenly are limited on our colors that we can use liberally. Things like red, purple, orange, the tones of them we need to be very careful when to use, and obviously objects that you're going to be interacting with need to be designed around those colors, which limits us in some ways.
Now, Katzburg isn't actually all sunshine and rainbows. Let's dive into the criminal underbelly of the little town. Rats are the big brawlers of Katzburg. They're often seen commanding a squadron of mice that flee when their leader is defeated. Raccoons are born cowards, and they try to take cheap shots at Klex from afar, while ravens are all squawk and no bite, confident until Klex takes them down a notch. However, Klex has several ways of fighting back. Klex can turn into a ball and slam down into enemies for an area of effect attack, and of course, Klex has a 3-punch combo with which he can lunge forward at enemies. Now we will go into a little bit of gameplay. Yeah, right. So you can see we're here in the level select, and let's dive right in. Klex and Pick are going to talk to this old cat who they're friends with, and they've known for a long time. They share food with her a lot. And here's a little gameplay section. As you can see, this is one of our checkpoints, which Pick the bird safeguards for you. And once again, here's one of the ball interactables. And this is Biscuit. She is a young cat that seems to be in a spot of bother. If we're going to help her a little bit here and take out these enemies that are threatening her, she's going to talk to you. And Biscuit is... That's not supposed to be there. Biscuit is... Klex is her idol, and she loves him very much. And she says here, I wish I could give you something as a thank you, but that white cat took everything I had. So it seems that Krümel too, the house cat here, Biscuit, has fallen prey to his dastardly deeds. We leave. Sorry. And that was our demo. So, as usual, not everything went swimmingly well this semester. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we were no longer working as students, but as a company making a product, and a lot of the decisions came from that. And in preparation for this semester, we applied for the developer's ID, for the developer's license for the Nintendo Switch Dev Kit, because we were planning on releasing it on the Nintendo eShop. And building it on the Switch has always been our goal, but after a long wait, we got rejected. And this is not something that we can't fix, but as is the nature of paperwork and applications, resolving it will take some time, and we didn't want to go behind Nintendo's back and develop it through our uni.
Aside from all of those things, we also have a responsibility to, for example, our publisher, Artex. They help us in monthly meetings, they look over the whole game, give us feedback on every single aspect, as well as give us general support and help a lot with all the paperwork that we have to do now due to the context that we're in. Aside from that, we're also, because things are getting so much more serious, we already set up a whole marketing plan with them that goes from like a bit ago until all the way to the release and a little bit further than that.
On the game itself, we spent a lot of time working on back-end systems, which is a huge step forward for us. Things like the dialogue systems, the level select, and more level tools for our designers are things that are usually sidelined in semester projects, and here we finally had the chance to add them to the game for good. And on the level and art side, we are on track with the milestone plan that we made with Artex, which, even though a lot of the assets are still placeholders, means that we made significant progress in the designing and in the assembling of our levels.
To conclude, at the end of our final semester project, Blobbyclex has survived 3 semesters and many headaches. And we've learned and grown a lot over these past 2 years, and even then, our work is far from done. And from the bottom of our hearts, we want to thank our professors, our lab team, and our fellow peers for their continuous support and patience over these years, and we wish all students the best in their future work. And as for us, we will be entering the summer break with our laptops still in hand. And if you want to play with Klex for one last time,
feel free to come by our booth later. Thank you.
What do you think of when you hear the word mermaid? Take a moment. Perhaps you think of a childhood fantasy, and it reminds you of a time where you played together with your friends in the pool. Or you think of sirens and their beautiful songs. Maybe even the vast freedom of the sea. Well, for our main character Esther, the connection to mermaids is a living nightmare. She is a human who was experimented on against her will, rubbed off her legs and stitched together with a fishtail. Now trapped in a facility that only promises more pain, she has to try to flee whatever way she can. That is what our game, Mermaid, is about. It is a 3D survival horror game for horror and mermaid enthusiasts. It's a single player for mature audiences, which you play on PC with controller, and the demo is around 20 minutes. So without further ado, let's have a look.
Okay, now let's meet the team. We are the Mermakers Trust. I'm Tabea, I'm the project manager and was also one of the 2D artists.
I'm Marina, I'm the game designer, one of the environment artists and animators.
I'm Leonie, an environment and VFX artist.
I'm Sontje, I'm the programmer,
and also I supported project management.
I'm Pauline, the creative director.
I'm Eva, I was a character artist, animator, and I was also the sound manager. And with that, I want to give a huge, huge thank you to our amazing soundies, Till Wagner, Daniel Erben, and Finn Wesner. Now, how do you play and what is your goal? After being transformed into a mermaid, you must adapt to your new body and use your new abilities to escape this place that keeps you trapped and your cruel creator who put you into this place. The gameplay revolves around switching between swimming through water tanks and crawling onto land to explore the environment and to find a path to freedom. The problem is the facility was built for people with legs, which you now don't have anymore. So you need to figure out different ways to progress across land or through water. While you are underwater, you are fast and agile and can therefore navigate the place very quickly. However, you are not alone. There are other experiments, much more grotesque looking and much more unfortunate than you, who lie and lurk beneath the surface. They want to do you harm, and you need to have very quick reflexes and fast swimming to avoid them and not let them reach you. When water is no longer an option, you then must crawl onto land to search for another way. You can interact with levers and open doors to open new paths and continue your escape. So now that you know how to play, let's see who you play. Meet Esther, the protagonist of our game. She was once a normal young woman until she was abducted by a crazy scientist who took off her legs and forced her spine to fuse together with a dolphin tail. And for designing her, I really tried to put myself into the shoes of this crazy scientist. So what does she want the mermaid to look like? What are her goals? What fishes does she use? What operations does she take to ensure that the operation ends up successful? And then I thought about us as game developers. We want a horror game character. We want her to look gory and scary. And then I kind of put those two ideas of what Esther needed to be like together and, well, designed what she ended up being like.
Now, let's meet her creator, Dr. Elizabeth Ward, a 37-year-old doctor whose goal is to further scientific research and who was born without empathy, which is needed in her field of work, because to further scientific discovery, her only goal right now is to combine human and marine life forms, which doesn't end well for either, which is why we now have the experiments. They are way less successful, if you can call Esther a success, and are destined to a life of pain and suffering, because unlike Esther, they have lost even more limbs and parts in the process.
Then we asked ourselves, where would someone like Dr. Elizabeth, interested in marine life and research, go? There are many places on Earth. We chose Australia, Queensland, most specifically the coast in front of the Great Barrier Reef. There she found an old abandoned aquarium and bought it up, and then went and modified it for her marine and human experimentation. Time-wise, we were inspired by the mid to late 20th century, by the color schemes used during that time, and the medical procedures and instruments used during it. And those influenced also the creation of some more fantastical props that are used in the creation of a mermaid, like test tubes or specified spine fusers, and to create them. The base architecture is a combination between both brutalism for the big repeating geometric designs and streamline to bring in a little bit of that aquatic feel. And to represent the rundownness, we went with a lot of aged materials, crooked tiles, rusty metal, faded wood, faded colors.
All right, let's take a look at one of our biggest technical and also game design challenges, our unconventional movement system. Because as it turns out, making a swimming mechanic is not that straightforward, and there's not really a blueprint version of how you can do it. Especially because with controller, you obviously have the stick input, and it's just like forward, backward, left, right. But for underwater movement, we also needed up and down. So translating this 2D input from the controller into like 3D movement was quite the big challenge and required us to do lots of different prototypes in the beginning and iterate on them and do lots of user testings. And then also for our crawling mechanic, because we wanted to like translate Esther's feelings onto our player as well when they are on land, like feeling vulnerable and kind of more slow. We did the crawling mechanic in a way where you have to actually place the hand in front of you and then drag yourself forward, kind of a little bit like in the game, I forgot the name. Baby Steps, yes. Where you have to place your feet in front of you. And yeah, that was quite the challenge to balance, like having this mechanic that should feel a little bit frustrating maybe, but obviously it's like one of our main movement mechanics and shouldn't feel frustrating. So big takeaway is like do frequent user testings.
So where are we now and what comes next? For now, obviously, we have our game already on itch. You can find us with the title Mermaid. And we're also here at the exhibition today. But this is not the end. We want to develop this game further and already have a place at Gamescom in August where we will exhibit for hopefully 2 days. And then in early 2027, we plan on having even further developed this game and released a demo version on Steam. So now it is your chance to be her next experiment today in the Mensa, and we might even let you keep your legs. Thank you.
All right, after the physical horrors of lab experiments, we now present you the mental horrors of what's inside your mind. Welcome to the final presentation of Florence the Mind Wanderer. If you imagine your mind as a mind garden, what story would it tell about yourself? Perhaps neglected crops, blooming flowers, succulent vines starving for light, or hedges trimmed to perfection? Well, the possibilities are quite endless, and in our animated concept, this idea is our reality. Stuck in a fantastical realm where everyone's psyche manifests as mind gardens, our protagonist Florence is looking for her very own garden after an identity crisis in the real world. But it turns out that finding your own mind garden isn't so easy. If this idea intrigued you, I hope you will find our animated teaser just as intriguing. Well, let's quickly introduce the team. I'm Anthea. I was compositor and the art director of these wonderful people.
Hello, I'm Sophie. I was a storyboarder and 2D animator.
Hello, I'm Melissa. I'm also a 2D animator and I also handled the sound.
Hello, I'm Jenny. I'm the environment artist and project manager.
And this is Florence. She's a sensitive, kind, but a bit naive person. She caves easily to expectations, tries her best to meet them as much as possible, while also losing sight of herself. After she finds herself in the mind garden, she starts searching for identity and tries to find her own mind garden and her own self. We wanted a stylized character design with stylized proportions, clean shapes, and no outlines. We start off with a neat design that over the course of the animation changes into a more flowy and adventurous design.
Yeah, now I want to tell you a little bit more about the gardens that we created for this teaser. And it was really important to us to create gardens that are different from each other, with each having their unique traits that tell you more about the person who owns it. And it had to be a world where Florence stands out and slowly changes as she progresses with the story. And this is our first garden that gets introduced to you in the story teaser, which is the dense/flooded garden. It's a very bright area with a lot of luscious plants and flowers. And it was important that this is the first garden, since this introduces you to Florence. And it first starts off like really inviting, and later the garden floods, which shows Florence that she is actually not safe here. And this garden represents a person who's emotionally overwhelmed and still has little moments of hopefulness. This is the second area, which is the carnivorous garden. Its nature is very dangerous for Florence, and with like very sharp plants and plant creatures that try to chase her out. And this garden represents a person who is being hostile and exhibits self-defeating behavior. And this is our last garden, which is the decaying garden, which is the most contrasting area compared to the others, as it almost seems too quiet. Its garden elements are already losing all its colors and vegetation, and is slowly breaking apart, only leaving the most important and last memories of a person who is slowly passing away.
Now, some noteworthy things about our animation process were that during the early production, we treated the animatic as more of a living document rather than a finished step, which means that every time we had an updated version of a shot, we replaced it in the animatic and adjusted the teaser accordingly based on how it felt as a unified sequence. On the actual production side, Sophie and I were responsible for animating the shots. We frequently shared our progress for feedback, to correct mistakes early and improve the animation quality. After finishing the rough animations, we moved on to cleanup and coloring, which we actually combined into a single step for more efficiency. And after the shots were finished, we handed them over to Anthea, who handled the compositing and assembled the scenes with Jenny's backgrounds.
So now I want to tell you a little bit about the challenges that our project faced. Overall, we had little to no big complications, and we had like a really smooth process, but we still faced a few challenges that slowed down our process. For example, having too many ideas, no clear story direction, long feedback loops, and also wrong priorities, which made us work on some content for long periods of times, which were eventually cut out anyways. And the way we managed to solve these problems was by cutting unnecessary content before we started working on it, weekly goals for a better overview, personal deadlines, and yes, also taking risks, like making the decision to overwork the whole storyboard a day before the deadline, which eventually turned out to be the right decision for us.
Yeah. As mentioned before, taking risks really helped us to move the animation to a new direction, while also really focusing on not overworking ourselves and be flexible with changes not lose enjoyment in our work. We also tried to capture the vibe as best as possible without focusing too much on the answering every question and focusing too much on every detail. And the most important step was to have fun.
And that's it from us. We hope to see you at our exhibition booth later if you want to watch the animation again or harvest some stickers. Thank you.
Or harvest these things. Or harvest these things.
Ein Lied noch ehe wir starten, es sind nur noch Minuten, bis endlich uns das Raumschiff in ferne Welten trägt.
Hello, welcome to our final presentation for Dead Recoil. I am Silas, the vision keeper, programmer and animator on this project.
I'm Simon, I'm the sound manager, the game designer and the 3D artist.
My name is Ole, I'm the VFX artist, the UI artist and one of the game designers.
I'm Sarthak, I'm a 3D artist and tech artist.
And I'm Zego, I'm the character artist and concept artist.
And I'm Bea. I was the production manager, the art director and environment artist. And I want to also say thank you here for our sound designers, Raphael, Kim and Joshua, and to Grupa Čelovek, who provided our soundtrack.
In our game, you play as a necromancer and lead your army of undead against you-know-who. You fight this fight in a GDR colony on Mars, and we made this game in Unity for PC, and we have about 60 minutes of playtime.
So let's talk a little bit about gameplay. You already saw the gimmick of the game is you can resurrect your enemies and then have them fight for you. But first and foremost, it's a movement shooter. So you have a lot of movement options. You can dash, you can double jump. You have a punch that has infinite range and you fly across the map with that. And of course, you have a lot of weapons. There are 5 unlockable weapons over the course of the game, and each of them has 2 upgrades, so a total of 15 different ones. And those, of course, also then interact with your movement and your zombie abilities. For example, here on the left, you can see attachment for your shotgun, where you have like jet engines on your shotgun, and then it shoots you
along with the shot every time you shoot it. And every time you have one of those movement things, your zombies move with you. So you can basically slingshot them when you dash or use a shotgun attachment. And they do a lot of damage when they hit enemies. So then you shot yourself and the zombies. Or on the right you see a weapon that both uses zombies as ammo. So every time you shoot it, you sacrifice one of your zombies. But this one also has an attachment that it automatically resurrects your enemies. So if you don't miss a shot, you will always have ammo. Or you can use it to build up your zombie army as well. One special thing we did to have a lot of the gameplay we have now, we did a lot of play testing. And for play testing, we decided to make some proxies for enemies that are rigged and animated, but have super simple models and rigs. So only 4 bones. These are these pill guys you see on the left. And only very late in development, we actually changed them for actual models. We did that so all of our enemy stuff was, very editable, and we could still change things based on feedback during development.
So regarding our environment, since we're set on Mars in a GDR colony, we went for a futuristic brutalism architectural style to reflect on the authoritarian government we want to portray in our game. For that we use very blocky buildings and towering structures, and the main question we always asked ourselves is, what would a truck do to this? So imagine a truck driving into the building you're currently designing. Would the truck destroy the building? Then it may not fit in our environment. Another guideline we went for, especially in the residential structures, is, for example, the technological progress shouldn't be too obvious in the residential structures as to or rather, I should say, we want to show that the common folk kind of still struggling. Even though they're on Mars, they left Earth, they didn't really improve their life with greater technology. However, militarily and the government, they use more technologically advanced stuff. For example, the force field, the orange field you can see there in the picture in the background. Another thing is that since it's GDR, we wanted the environment to be readable as German. This isn't really easy, especially if you are set on Mars. But for example, with stuff like the signage, traffic signs, pedestrian crossings, stuff like that, it brings the atmosphere of Germany kind of over really well. Another thing for textures, we went for big concrete slabs and exposed metal brick, metal, that way around. And in the bottom you can see use cases of us using Atlas textures and channel packed maps. Maybe another insight into our production pipeline, we modeled the environment in Blender and used a custom script to import all the stuff into Unity and swap the FBXs there, so we don't have to assemble the stuff in Unity and just can use Blender and use the modular kits there.
Now let's have a look at our characters. So these are the East German soldiers that you'll be fighting during the game. They are, of course, based on real, authentic East Germany wear that they used to use in the time, but mixed with a futuristic, brutalistic style that you would find in Mars. Now, once you can kill these guys, they turn into zombies, which you can then use to fight more soldiers and have more control over the area.
Now, since Dead Recoil is a first-person shooter, it needs to feel weighty and just good. And an effective way to do that is with visual effects. But as it is a shooter, and as you can imagine, that means it needs a lot of different effects that all are also unique. And as we all know by now, we never have enough time to actually do all the effects that we want to do. To me, that meant I could not do a unique shader for each visual effect. So instead, I opted to do something I usually don't, which is make just a few specific shaders with just a few settings to them that I could manipulate to their fullest extent. Here, for example, we can see two different effects, one for like an explosion and another one for like a resurrection. But they actually use the exact same shader underneath. It's just different values plugged into them, even though, or also the visual effects graph setup is very similar as well. Okay, well, in the end, this means I'm at around 4 different shaders for all visual effects in the whole game, and that translated to roughly 30 to 40 visual effects that were actually supported. And when I said simple but powerful, I mean that quite literally. As you can see, this is the shader used for the visual effects. It just has 2 color inputs, one that takes over the whole mesh and can grow and shrink, and a second one that will go over that and slowly grow and shrink as well. Then there's a noise texture for that to kind of manipulate how that growing and shrinking will actually look like, and simply the sliders to manipulate that within VFX Work. And that's everything, and with that, you can make a lot of different things.
On this big project, we had a lot of fun, but we also had a few areas of improvement that were identified. One of these is clearer and more precise communication to prevent misunderstandings and making sure that everyone is always on the same page, which also ties into making sure that everyone adheres to modular and strict iterative processes that have been decided upon before. And as said, with such a big scope, we discovered that it's also very useful to limit yourself, because this helps you to get more creative with what you're doing and might prevent ridiculous overscoping. So now I want to invite you to our booth at the exhibition later today in the Mensa, and possibly for people who don't have time today and might go to Gamescom, we might also be there with our booth in the indie area, probably on Thursday the 27th and Friday the 28th of August. So now, get up and overthrow the government with us.
All right. This is not an insult. This is the title of our 3D animation, Fuck You Too. So, just to introduce the team first, I am Lee. I am the creative director and also technical director. I also looked over animation and narrative.
I'm Blight. I'm the environment artist, and I also did concept art, and I was animating too.
I'm Angela. I'm the production manager and narrative designer of the team.
I'm Luisa. I did character art. I'm the production manager. I did 2D art and color and also animation.
Hi, I'm Luna. I'm the tech artist, the sound manager, and the principal shader artist.
All right, so before we get started, a short summary of our vision. We wanted to make a comic graphics inspired 3D animation that was of a lengthier length. It is set in the Philiport Harbor in Philadelphia around the 2000s, and it concerns 2 middle-aged harbor workers, one of which is deaf, and it's a slice of life emotional experience that is a bit longer as compared to other projects that we have done in uni. So without further ado, we are going to show it to you. It's a bit longer, so sit back and enjoy.
seconds left on the clock. We'll be with you right after this break. Remaining on the game clock. Curry brings it up, seizing up to his defenders at the top of the key. 8 seconds. He drives left, creates space, steps back for the three. What a pass by Miles. This game was tied at 30, and then Philadelphia came alive again and outscored the Pacers 23-12.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the characters. You just met Joe. He is a deaf man. He has been deaf ever since his childhood, and his first language is ASL. He has worked for a very long time at the Philadelphia Harbor. And when you first meet him, he appears more reserved, maybe shy even, but if you get to know him really well, you get to know his wittier and like more open side. He's very independent and emotionally stable.
This is our second main character. His name is Solomon, short Sol. He's new at the harbor, he's a new worker, and also meets Joe there. On the first impression, you get like a kind of outgoing and friendly and kind vibe from him, but internally he suffers from really deep unhappiness, and he is not quite sure where this should come from, because he seems to have a stable life, wife and kids, a stable job, but he's still unhappy underneath. The man suffers from chronic depression and doesn't really know the clinical term. He's not aware he deals with this, so he just tries to cope through everyday life.
The narrative focus of our project lies in seemingly unspectacular things, such as the perspective of a middle-aged man who is exactly the type to treat deafness as simply a matter of fact to accommodate to, as friendship as a thing that is completely devoid of grand gestures or declarations, and mental health, alas, is something to be overlooked.
Yeah, so as you just saw, we have a lot of representation in our animation. So we made sure to put a lot of effort into researching deaf community and culture to specifically find Joe's place within it. Our animation plays in the early 2000s in an environment that is not necessarily accessible for someone like him, and we decided that his character should be somebody who's maybe less in touch with the community than, for example, somebody who has other deaf people around him. For the translations, a friend helped with the translations. We reached out to a couple of services, but he really came through for us. Thank you so much. And we also used public sources like Handspeak, which is an open ASL dictionary.
All right, now some notes on the production. This is our mock-up that you might have seen at the Greenlight. It represents our style because it has a monochrome color palette and flat shading. Especially for the character, we did not want any shading, so they are just the focus of the color, with the background having lighter lines with some minimal shading to imply depth. This is then, as you saw, our final product, and I think it represents very well the style that we were aiming for, with the outlines and the background fading in a bit. More on that now.
Yeah, as Lee mentioned, that was our pipeline approach, and for our environment, we decided as a setting for Philadelphia. So we tried to also find out settings that would suit this area. We have 3 main settings, which would be first off the Philiport Harbor and a smoking area there, and also inside this area we have a stuff room. This is also very 2000s coded, so we tried to adjust the furniture to look really like this time. And we also have a scene where they have a public viewing event and watch basketball together. This happens at the bar you can see at the bottom of the building. And we really try to get the Philly look with details, for example, on the left side, you see this typical stoop you find in the neighborhoods, or those chunky roofs and boxy buildings in general.
So as for shaders, we used them to achieve this comic-esque style. As Lee previously mentioned, the environments were shaded with a slight shadow to them, while the characters are completely flat. Furthermore, we used Blender's grease pencil outlines to further the comic effect, as well as the grease pencil drawings on the environment and characters to add some more roughness to stuff.
Our pipeline differed slightly from more traditional animation pipelines, since we used a very motion capture-centered type of pipeline. We started out with a script that was further developed into a storyboard. On base of that, we have captured motion capture and used it as the base for our previs. The previs was the previs was a very convenient step that was only 3 steps away from the final image. The only downside was that the motion capture data was so rough that it didn't really bring much to the table when it came to user testing. It was a bit unreadable in some stages. But once we applied the shaders, replaced the placeholders, and cleaned up the animation, we had our final image. The advantage of this pipeline was that it was very easy to run parallel operations in the team. However, it was all a learning curve for sure.
Lastly, sound was there to underline our animation. We had 3 amazing soundies with Lorenz Kutter, Amadeus Lorenz, and Daniel Dillmann. 2 of them are here today. And also Markus Strupp did some voice acting for our animation. We wanted our music to be very grounded, to be acoustic in the background, to just underline what was happening actually in the animation. We wanted the voice acting to be minimal, and especially the voice acting that was happening in the scenes to be barely heard, to further underline the deafness. And the sound profile was mostly realistic, but still should show a bit of how the character perceives things, so only what they see is actually heard and things like that.
All right, thank you for attending our presentation and watching our short. You can rewatch it again at our booth and also come to collect stickers if you'd like. Thank you, and goodbye.
So, last but not least, I would like to introduce you to Wax and Wayne. Our game is a 3D puzzle platformer which is built on a reactive wax system in which our player, creatures, and most of the environment is affected by it. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I am the master and creative director of the project, together with my wonderful team.
I'm Alp, the technical director of the project.
I'm Johanna, I'm vision keeper, game and level designer and programmer.
I'm Anna, I'm art lead and was the artist for the player character.
I'm Megan, I'm the VFX artist and one of the animators.
Hello, I'm Paulina and I'm an animal artist and I was also one of the animators.
And I'm Lisanne, I did the production management, our world building and environment, and we also had two amazing soundies, Finn and John. So our story starts with a human sculptor. He suffered from a burnout and fled into the mountains. There he discovered a ruined and old monastery with wax reserves and a mysterious magical flame. But he couldn't escape his need for perfection and started sculpting again, this time with wax. And when those creations are lit by the magical flame, they become alive, the wax burn. Some of those creations are considered perfect, but some of the imperfect wax burn were then hunted down and discarded and are now trapped inside the lower parts of the monastery. After some time, the wax burn started worshipping their creator and formed an entire religion around him. And you are one of the imperfect wax burn. Also discarded and thrown away, but still alive and ready to explore the ruins of this fallen civilization.
So now let's have a look. You wake up here as a humanoid candle and you can use the flame on your head to reshape the environment and melt the wax around you. But be careful, you not only melt the wax of the environment, but also your own. If you boost your flame, you can melt it faster, but that also means that you lose your body volume faster. Your body volume serves as your HP, so you should be careful about that. If you boost your flame, you can also walk faster, but now that we've lost some of our body volume, let's find a way how to restore it. Well, that seemed to work, so let's head on and find a way out of here. Let's try to melt a hole through here and maybe we can find a hidden path. Nice, that seemed to have worked. But yeah, losing parts of your body doesn't only have to be cursed, it can also be blessing because it allows you to squeeze through tighter places. In our game, we focus a lot on environmental exploration and solving mysteries, solving puzzles, finding hidden passages, and allowing the player to find multiple solutions for the same puzzle. You can also just try to melt away the wax that you find in your environment, and maybe you can discover some secrets. But yeah, if you want to find out what else might be hidden in the wax, you will have to play for yourself.
So, with the environmental dynamic wax being a core unique gameplay feature, let me walk you through how I set up the system so that we have a procedural mesh that can be deformed by the player and also has procedural collision. What we used for this as algorithm is the marching cubes algorithm. Imagine, if you will, a 3D grid filled with points, and all of these points have a value assigned to them. You then try to find points where the value crosses a certain threshold, and very simply speaking, triangulate geometry around these places. So by manipulating values, you can manipulate geometry. On the right, you can see what approximating a sphere looks like in our system with different resolutions of this grid. So once you introduce your geometry into this system, there are several steps to make it get that wax logic. Number one, I use a sphere around the player's flame to reduce density in this grid, so remove values of these points that indents the mesh. I then store that information in little debug spheres that I raycast down along the mesh surface and then reintroduce that value at the bottom of the grid. I also use these traveling density informations and introduce this into a visual-only marching cube system as well. And to get the nice runny melting look of the wet wax, I use live vertex paint around the flame of the player directly onto the mesh, and that can easily plugged into our wax shader, into roughness, specular, and normals to produce this nice runny gooey wax system and enable the player to completely reshape the environment to their liking.
Yeah, to bring our candle to life, we first of all developed a Niagara system that allowed us to dynamically switch between the different flame states. But for the actual melting effect itself, we created a shader mask that allowed us to separate the body into two parts. So we separated the body into a melted area and a non-melted area. While the non-melted area could use UV space, the melted area required local space and vertex interpolation to dynamically move with the animated body. Using this shader mask, we were then able to gradually build up our wax material. We started out with color and ambient occlusion, and then added onto that animated dripping normals and adjusted the roughness on the melted parts to make them look a bit smoother and shinier. Afterwards, we applied world position offset to the melted area to give up the impression that the wax that had flowed down had kind of accumulated on the body. Afterwards, we applied our dissolve effect, which hides parts of the mesh that have melted away. The problem this creates is that we have a giant opening at the top of our mesh. To solve that issue, we created melt cap layers that are skinned to the same skeleton and dissolve alongside the main mesh, creating the illusion of a solid wax interior. To finalize it all, we then programmed the arms to fall off at the appropriate moments and ended it all with a fluid simulation when the character finally meets their demise.
For the actual 3D character, it was really important that it's not just a normal human with a wax material, but actually looks like a wax person. So I used the shape language of candles all throughout the character design in different ways. For the actual pipeline, I did something slightly different. I started off with a base mesh and used the topology of that to model the hair and the clothing. Then I already rigged it, so it would be done sooner for animation. And only afterward did I actually sculpt the character by using the mesh that I made just with a higher resolution. I liked this approach for many different reasons, biggest of which I didn't have to do retopology. Also, I found that matching concept art or doing quick anatomical changes was much more pleasant with a low poly mesh rather than a high poly one, at least for me. And lastly, having a mesh pretty much already there with really nice topology and sculpting on top of that was a lot of fun and also really quick, and almost for that alone is why I want to use this approach in the future as well.
Yeah, and in our game you will also encounter enemy. It represents the creation of perfect waxborns, who are the followers of the sculptor, or his religion, I would say. So it was very important to kind of include in the design this religious background, and also make him feel powerful. Yeah. As the main goal of the enemy is to hunt and kill our player. I would also add that the enemy is not intended for the direct combat, but as an additional pressure on the player.
So to create the base of our world, I started with a modular church toolkit. And as soon as the level design blockout was done, I then placed my toolkit into Unreal, adjusted some assets, and also created some missing ones. Then came the damage and aging and also the wax to finalize the shapes. And after doing the UVs and materials, I created the lighting, focused on the huge contrast between the warm candlelight and the cold monastery. And really, we wanted to convey the narrative only through environments, so therefore, each element had its own purpose. I wanted to create a mood of isolation and oppression through the lighting and the large architecture. And then we also have our visual and religious centerpiece, our sculpture statue that you can see here on the right. He's holding the wax, the fire, and sculpting tools that are basically the core of our game. And then finally, I added wax corpses and weapons that tell the story of the lost battle of the imperfect and the perfect wax burn.
Okay, so for our key takeaways, please use Git for visual assets. It's very, very practical. Technical style guides are a must. Sandbox folders are very great for experimentation. Import assets in Unreal as early as possible, and especially test the export pipelines. And look beyond the team's stress. It's very important to also check the motivation level and the moods of the team to see like the overview, how the team is doing. Yeah.
As you can see, we truly have an amazing team. Everyone was committed and motivated along the way. And I believe I speak for both myself and Andre over here when I say it was a pleasure to be directors in this project. And when looking at the results, I think everyone who worked on it should be proud of themselves. We really can't wait for you to get your hands on this and try it for yourselves. We'll have the game on itch.io, and then also you can also check it at the exhibition, of course. See you there.
All right. Thank you very, very much for the awesome project. Great work, everyone. Please take a short break and make sure your booth at the exhibition works the way you expect it to. I'm looking forward to playing all your games and having another look at your movies. That's it. Great stuff, guys.